So in this video, we're going to be doing an intervention. And the reason why is that I believe what you call being yourself, being genuine, being real, is actually you being inconsiderate and lazy. What I want to teach you in this video is empathy, being aware of where people are at emotionally, spiritually, their sense of reality, and when taking this into consideration, how you can actually connect to where they're at in a way that's win-win. See, if I'm sitting here right now and I just feel something kind of bubbling up because maybe earlier I ate some really good fried food, and I just turn to you and I go, oh, that's the real me. That's something from within, something real and authentic from within me, and I just put that in you. And then you say, hey, I don't like that. I go, hey, wait. I'm being myself. What's the problem here? Well, you might say to me, hey, you're not being considerate of where I'm at. I say, can't you be enlightened and not even in any kind of duality? Can't you see the beauty in fresh air and the gas that I just emitted onto you? Isn't that the same thing? Aren't you enlightened? Aren't you an enlightened being? Can't you, in your enlightenment, feel no discernment and feel a true expression from the depths of inside of me and view that as the same as the beautiful fresh air here in Charleston, South Carolina? Aren't you in that place? Aren't you enlightened? Well, of course, if you're not enlightened, and I'm expecting you to be enlightened, that's not being very considerate of where you're at. It's not meeting you where you're at. So to meet you where you're at, when I feel that within me, maybe I'll just walk over here for a minute. Maybe I'll walk a little bit downwind. Maybe I'll clench a little bit. Or maybe I'll give you a warning. Or maybe I'll just make it really funny and then make a joke out of it. But whatever the case, that's not me being inauthentic if I'm doing that for you. That's me recognizing that you're not an enlightened human being that views my gas as the same thing as this beautiful ocean air. So in this video, we're gonna go deep on really examining where the people who you want to draw into your life are at. That could be people who you want to make friends with, people who you like to network with, professional connections that you want to make, people who you'd like to date or attract, or just anybody that you'd ever like to speak to. What we're going to be examining is where people are at, and really thinking about it without judgment, and in thinking about it without this weird judgment or feeling of superiority, considering what is it about ourselves that we can do to make our interactions with them win-win, pleasant for us, pleasant for them, and create a synergy together that is pleasant for all. Social dynamics ever since 2002, and I find there's two aspects of social dynamics, one which just about everybody agrees with, and the other that a lot of people have difficulty letting land, kind of letting it into their psyche. The first aspect, which everybody agrees with, is to cultivate real value. Be somebody who has honest to goodness, real value to offer to the world. I think everybody agrees with that. Anytime that you say you should have value to contribute to society, you're gonna get a lot of golf claps, you're gonna get a lot of thumbs up, everybody agrees with that. The place where some people can struggle is when we say we also have to consider the way in which we are presenting that value, the way that we are doling that value out and allowing it to come across. And the reason why is because of a misperception. The perception is that if you have value to offer, everybody else should just immediately get it. They shouldn't be prioritizing their life. They should just prioritize you. They should immediately get you. If you have value, they should just instantly get it with no difficulty at all. You should put no thought whatsoever into their experience of you. You should just be a selfish little worm and sit there and expect them to instantly get it, how amazing you are. Now, of course, that makes sense, right? There's products all over the world. And right now, you sitting at home, you should just magically, like a psychic, know what those great products are and just track them down and go and find them. You should do that as if by magic, right? That product that business that creates the product, they should put no effort whatsoever into understanding where you're coming from and meeting you where you're at. You should just get it automatically. Well, of course that makes no sense. So the flip side of the coin of having real value to offer to the world is, in addition to that, taking the time, pausing, and having the respect for other people to think about where they're coming from and to think about how they would digest what it is that you're presenting to them. I'm gonna give you a very blunt example, and it's gonna freak you out, and that's my point. In my mind, I wanna be clear here, to me, 100%, if you were to spend the next several years attending my live events, or watching my digital programs, or doing mentoring through the internet or through the phone with me, I don't even have 1% doubt that you would not only get an incredible ROI on that, but in addition to that, it'd be the best thing that you could ever do for yourself. But is that really me just being fair to you when I say that? Is that enough to present myself to you? I don't think it is. And for that reason, I spend probably 85% of my time running around the country, creating video content for you and doling out what it is that I have to show you in ways that I try to make it beautiful. I come to beautiful places that I think you might like. I try to present it to you with energy and enthusiasm. And I try to really captivate your imagination so that you can slowly get to know me. Then maybe I'll offer you a free event. Then maybe I'll offer you an inexpensive event. And then if you're seeing an ROI in your life, you can judge that for yourself. And by the time that I would show you a more in-depth event that would require more of an investment, well, guess what? If you already have the proven results from the free content, or maybe from a free event or a cheap event, then at that point, you're more open-minded to invest deeper. That isn't me manipulating you. That is me saying, I respect you. I don't think you're a psychic. I think that you have your own priorities in life. I think that you have your own paradigm as far as where you're coming from. And I'm taking it upon myself out of respect and empathy and love for you to present myself in a way that makes sense. This is not done to take. This is done to give, to be of service, and to be considerate. So again, the fact that I worked for 2 decades now on my product or my offering to make it really high quality, that is one side of the coin. But the other side of the coin is I have worked equally hard in the way that I'm presenting it to you. Now, that being the case, there's people who you want to meet, people who you want to network with, make friends with, maybe even people you want to date or attract, maybe people who you just want to start talking to out here, just have a nice day. And what we're going to be explaining as we go through this is how to really take an audit of where other people are coming from and to be honest about it and to never judge, as we said earlier, never to judge, and simply to make an effort to understand and connect. And once you have that, from that standpoint, now you can begin to engage with someone in a way that resonates with where they're at. So, as we launch further here in South Carolina, in Charleston, what I'm going to be challenging you to do is take an honest look at where people are coming from and an honest look at yourself, and really a very painful look at yourself to realistically assess the extent to which the value that you've built is connecting with other people. Even as I'm starting this, I bet you feel a little bit shocked that I get in this whole rant of how I think that you should be put through a process to take a program with me. And you might even be wondering right now, hey, wait a minute, is this just some kind of trick to get me to take a program? Is it a trick to get my money? And if you're feeling that, that's something that I triggered on purpose, because to tell you the truth, that would actually be very poor marketing skills if I were using this as an example to get you to take a program with me. Because look immediately how you feel resistance when I put it out there so overtly. Take my program. Give me your money. I want something from you. As opposed to if I'm putting out great content and leading you through a process that's really smooth and natural, that's actually going about it properly. So I wanted to use that example simply to get you to relate, because I want you to really relate what it's like to have somebody up in your face, in this case me, trying to get something from you. That being the case, if you ever feel any frustration that people don't immediately get you, understand that they have that exact same frustration that you might feel here. And you're sitting there dwelling on the fact that they don't immediately get you, but that is completely and utterly unfair of you. So if you feel any frustration around that, I want to explain to you that I relate. Let me tell you what I go through as far as that whole program thing. Sometimes I'll be in a room and I'll be talking to a student and I'm listening to their voice and I'm looking at their eye contact and I'm seeing their body language and I'm seeing the way they're coming across. And in my mind, I do a mathematical calculation of what that's going to cost them. And to be honest, you know what I think to myself? This is going to cost them millions over the course of their life. If you think about it, living in a first world country, even a third world country, frankly, with all the financial opportunity that's out there, if you have this stuff messed up and you're not getting it down, think of what that's going to cost you. And I'm sitting there thinking, why don't they just get it? Why don't they just sign up right now? And I can actually feel that frustration. Sometimes if I'm talking to a student, my biggest sticking point in getting them to sign up for a program is that I start to become frustrated and resentful that I'm even having to explain it. Why should I have to explain it? Look at yourself. Look at yourself. Look what you're missing. And look at this. You don't get it? And I can feel cortisol building up in myself that they don't immediately get it. And I don't want to have to sit there and explain it to them. But see, the first lesson that I'm going to give you here is that this is actually the point where you've got to be doubling down. This is the point where you've got to pause and say, wait a minute, this is somebody who could really benefit from what you have to offer. So at that point, you've got to take a deep breath. You've got to slow down. And you've actually got to do a better job than you almost ever would do in order to help them to get it. So at that point, let's say I'm talking to a prospective client. I'll say to myself, wait a minute, where's this client at? Where's their headspace at? What is this client's frame of reality? What are their wants and needs? How do I get out of my own head and what I'm trying to think about, which is, why don't they get me? Why don't they get me? I'm Owen. I have spent 20 years getting this. There's nothing else like this out there. Look how tested it is. I've gone to the end of the earth to bring this to them, and I'm having to talk them into, right? No, stop. Stop. Just stop. And instead what you do is you go, calm down. Where are they at? What do they need to hear? How can I serve them? And I go into my mind and I do a real audit of where they're coming from, a really deep audit. And I'm going to present myself in a way that connects to where they're at. I meet them where they're at. And what is my experience when I do this? Let me tell you what my experience is. It's beautiful. They wind up attending the program and they come to me later and they say, thank you, Owen, for not giving up on me. This has been, it's either 100% or something like 99.9% the response that I get. They say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for not giving up on me. Now see, in your mind, you would probably buy into that whole socially conditioned narrative of, well, if you're thinking about it, it's one thing to have great value, but if you put any thought in how to present it, or if you give empathy to somebody else and try to consider where they're at, oh, that's being creepy. No, that's not creepy. I would flip that. If you're failing to do that, that's lazy. That's not valuing them. So the key here is put time into what you have to offer. In my case, I spent decades working on my craft. I went out, as I've mentioned in many videos, 4 to 7 nights a week to learn about social skills. As far as the sales and marketing ideas that I would share, I've tested that well into 9 figures of sales. I've got the value there so that I know that when I'm presenting something in the right way, it's something of value. So the first step, like we said, is have something of value. Be someone of value. Don't be some loser who then is thinking, how do I present the fact that I'm a complete loser and have nothing to offer this person in a way that tricks them? That's a terrible attitude. But instead, combine those two things. Put time and energy into who you've become. But also understand that what somebody wants may not be what you think they would want. And that's another part of understanding people. You may think, oh, they need you to be a doctor, a lawyer, a perfect person. When in fact, that's not what they want at all. Maybe they want something different than that. No different than maybe somebody just wants a Big Mac or some fries. They don't need a perfect grass-fed steak. So McDonald's says, hey, we know that we've got something people want. So what you think people want also may not be what they want. So this is a whole process. This is what we're getting into in this video. I really want you to audit your value proposition, what you have, and to get out of your head and your values thinking that unless this is exactly what you would want, that there's nobody else who would want what you have to offer. I think there are. I want you to work on yourself, but I also want you to realize that there's many people who would appreciate what you have to offer right now, just as you are now, or maybe with some changes in the way that you carry yourself and the things that you focus on, things that are immediately changeable. Maybe with some little tweaks, you could be in a great spot. But then from there, we've got to start reframing this whole idea that thinking about how you're presenting yourself is an act of taking, and we've got to show that considering the way you're presenting yourself and understanding others is actually the ultimate act of selflessness and giving. Anytime that I've ever gone on a date with somebody and I met them out and I really made them have a fun time and made them just have just the best night ever, and they wind up coming out with me, consistently what I hear is, thank you. Wow, how did we even meet? We were just out. We just started talking. How did this even happen? This is the most magical thing I've ever experienced. I was just out, next thing you know, now we're together. This was beautiful. That's what I'm hearing. If I wasn't hearing that, this would not be the direction I'd be taking my life. So understand that there's a great pride and happiness that comes from working on your value proposition, understanding more what other people want, and learning how it is to present it to them. So the next thing that we've got to go into from here is then really drilling down on what that stuff is. I think you see the background kind of leading you into this because people have so much trouble swallowing it. I'm actually kind of drawing out how much I'm leading into this, even compared to a lot of my videos. But I think now we can agree that this is something we've got to work on and see the benefit of it. And the next step, like I said, is we're going to drill down on the specifics. What we've got to do right now is take you through a number of different concepts, because your version of reality at this point is not fully fleshed out. You think that you understand reality. I promise you, you don't. Even if you understand everything I'm going to say here, there's many different layers to this. I don't fully understand reality. But what we're going to do here is at least start to flesh it out and move your understanding in a better and more expansive direction. So right off the bat, understand that value is based on perception, and perception is subjective. So if I say to you, oh look, I'm going to give you a diamond, would you rather that or one of these many stones right here? Well, you understand the social context that diamonds are scarce, diamonds are rare, diamonds are exclusive, diamonds have a premium on them. It's hard to get a diamond. A diamond's expensive. You understand the social context. But what if you didn't? And I were to tell you that one of those little cobblestones is worth more than a diamond, simply because, hey, a diamond is see-through. Why do you want something see-through? Those stones back there, they can provide privacy. Well, that probably doesn't make much sense to you, but what if it did? What if you did live in that reality? It's very, very subjective. So your understanding of value is based on something known as the halo effect. And the halo effect is basically this effect where you look at the entire picture of something, and if you like it, because it has certain elements as a part of it, which we're going to talk about those elements, then you're going to focus on the positive in it. And if you don't like it, you're going to focus on the negative in it. So for example, there's people who like my content. And when they see this video, they're going to say, wow, another classic video, Tyler. And they have a halo effect on me. There's going to be other people who have predetermined that they don't like my content. And when they see this, they're going to view it as just another one of these annoying videos. For example, if in the halo effect, if you like what I do, maybe you're going to say, wow, he's on Rainbow Row out in Charleston. He really put in a lot of effort to present this to me. If you don't like it, then maybe what you'll say is, oh, he interrupted people on the street. He's kind of loud. He sounds kind of frenetic. He's tired, which that would be true. But see, even look at the idea of me being tired today, right, as I'm here shooting this. If you like me, maybe you're going to say, oh, he loves me so much, he'll shoot even when he's tired for me. On the other hand, if you don't like it, you might say, seems, it could be a little bit more focused, right? So that halo effect means that there's the full picture, and it's what you choose to focus on. If there's certain elements that are a part of that, you're going to focus on the good. And if those elements aren't a part of it to you, then you'll focus on the bad. This is based on something called reticular activation system. I've talked about this in many videos. RAS, look it up, do a search. And what that means is that our perception is very subjective. If I were to tell you right now, how many houses did you just see on Rainbow Row right back here that are blue? You may not know because it didn't have value to you. But if you rewind this video and you put a count of how many blue houses you just saw there, which you can even do if you want, well, then now all of a sudden, there's value on blue houses, and your RAS will put a halo effect around that blue house. But then what if I say, wait a minute, no, it wasn't the blue house, that's a mistake. It was the yellow house. Well, now all of a sudden, your RAS shifts onto the yellow houses, and previously, you didn't even know what kind of houses there were that were yellow, but now you do, okay? This is called the halo effect. So there's an entire cocktail of different elements that determine this halo effect, and you've got to be aware of it. Now, Let's think about this even deeper. Let's give some practical examples. Think about sport. What are some of the more popular sports? One of them is basketball, another's baseball, another's football, another's hockey. What is it that makes basketball a better sport for you to watch or more exciting than, let's say, water polo? Like, would you pay more money to go see LeBron James play basketball than one of the best in the world to play water polo? Well, let me ask you this. Do you even know if water polo is actually perhaps a better sport than basketball? Do you know? I don't know. I've never even really watched water polo. So why is it that basketball for me is a way bigger deal? I mean, I hate to say it, but basketball just right now, they're killing the game. They've got more social proof. To get into a basketball game is really, really hard to do. Now, let me tell you this. Back in the day when Kobe Bryant used to play for the Lakers, I live in LA, I would do anything to go see any game by Kobe. And I'd be sitting out there talking to scalpers saying, oh, how do I get in this game? How do I get in the game? And it would get to the point that you get what's called a buying frenzy. Now, this concept of a buying frenzy is absolutely critical that you understand, because what's happening is that the person's rational mind gets switched off, and all that they can think of is, I need it. And they're willing to pay way more, any kind of premium price, do whatever it takes in order to get that item they want. What are some elements there that trigger the buying frenzy? One of it is scarcity. If all of a sudden there's like last ticket, people start screaming, they freak out, they try to go buy the ticket. How about the fact that there's 18,000 people in the stadium watching this game? Let me ask you a question. Honestly, we use the example of water polo versus basketball. Let's go deeper than this. Let's drill down even further on the basketball example. Would you really know the difference between, say, a great high school basketball player who's already really tall, really big, and an NBA player if you didn't know the brand of, say, LeBron James or of the NBA? I don't think I would, and I've watched a lot of basketball. Truly, I don't think that I would. I don't know enough about it, so why do I want to see NBA? Why am I willing to pay hundreds or even thousands of dollars for a ticket to see an NBA game? Why did I spend thousands of dollars to go see Game 7, Kobe Bryant versus the Boston Celtics, the classic game, and see Kobe come out victorious, the Lakers win? Why did I pay for that? Simple. Social proof. Just the mere fact that I can say to you right now that I went to Game 7 of Lakers versus Boston, I'm loving this. I want to tell you right now, I want to be associated to that exclusivity. I mean, this isn't just a game when I'm watching this. To tell you the truth, that Game 7 was not even that great. It was a very tense game because it was Game 7, but it was the social context of it being Game 7 that jacked up the urgency around it. In reality, a game is a game. Think about this. A game is a game is a game. A game is a game is a game. It's just a game. You could be watching college players. You could be watching high school players. You could be watching Game 7. But why is Game 7 such a big deal? Scarcity, exclusivity, social proof. These different elements that create that buying frenzy to where anybody will pay money to go to that game. That's what you've got to be thinking about here. Comparing the objective value to the subjective value. And I want you to be thinking about how to create and generate subjective value here. The best thing that I've ever seen to explain this point is if you watch Miami Vice. Okay? Watch the original Miami Vice. And what you're gonna see is the main character, Don Johnson, is wearing these really expensive clothes. Really expensive suit. He's wearing the best designer clothes, driving the most expensive cars, best sunglasses, best everything. And you're seeing what was the best car and most exclusive clothing from the 80s. Now, if you watch it now, a lot of the clothes are kind of too loose by today's standards. They don't look very good. I mean, they look amazing in the sense that they're retro, but they don't look good by today's standards. Now, back in the day, those clothes had a halo effect on them. It wasn't that objectively speaking, those clothes look good. There was a halo effect. See, these brands, what they do is they're able to establish exclusivity, they're able to establish scarcity, they're able to establish social proof. And now when Don Johnson is wearing that clothing, when you see him, it's a completely different perception. Totally different. If you saw that in the 80s, it's like you're looking at God or something. You see it now, it's kind of like you're looking at MC Hammer. It's that subjective perception. And people would pay really almost any amount of money for that kind of clothes, those kind of cars. I mean, this runs deep. Look, I'm gonna give another simple example. Right now, if I were to take you to Italy to see the Mona Lisa or to see the statue of David, how big of a deal would that be? How quickly would you be trying to take photos for your social media showing that you saw the statue of David or the Mona Lisa or the Sistine Chapel? But I gotta be honest with you, I've seen these, I've been to Italy, it was beautiful. And I thought the statue of David was incredible. But I've also been to the Getty Museum, which is a local museum in LA. And there were statues that looked really similar to that there. And I wasn't snapping a million photos going, look at me, I'm in front of the random pretty expensive statue at the Getty in LA. I wasn't doing that. Well, why is that? There's not an exclusivity there, but around that brand, I want to show it to other people. It's the same thing as when you say go to a movie and you're in the theater and it's a packed house and all of a sudden your reticular activation system, your RAS, is totally locked onto that movie. Your experience of that movie is going to be better and bigger because of the social proof. Classic example of this, I think, in my mind, Quentin Tarantino. His movies actually, in many cases, look at, say, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's actually quite a slow-moving film, if you think about it. It's not really action-packed. But because it's Quentin Tarantino, Brad Pitt, Leo DiCaprio, your RAS is so locked in that you're looking at every move. There's one great scene that I loved with Margot Robbie, where they show her just experiencing a film. They focus on her smile, her eyes, her expressions, and it kind of drags on. Anybody other than Quentin Tarantino, I don't think could have pulled off that kind of a scene, because you get bored, you turn it off. But because it's Quentin Tarantino, that halo effect is there, and what's happening is you're actually able to look at that halo effect and really take it in, and it actually is a beautiful scene. Now, therein lies the key. I think that by Quentin Tarantino putting time to build his brand and to communicate with you in that level of social proof and exclusivity, I think that Margot Robbie scene was beautiful. I loved it. Every minute of it, I would rewatch it. Because it's Tarantino, I will literally sit there rewatching this scene with Margot Robbie, that from any other director, I would be bored out of my mind. And that's the main point you've got to take from this. He's actually offering me value. He's helping me to see things that I wouldn't be able to see. I would never see the beauty of that scene if he hadn't taken the time to connect to me. By taking the time to build his brand, taking the time to connect with me in that way, he was able to trigger that halo effect to where I was able to see something beautiful that I never would have been able to perceive. So when you fail to take the time to do that, fail to take the time to understand other people and where they're coming from, and to build something that will draw their attention, you are depriving them of what it is that you have to offer. Quentin Tarantino, he knows he's got something to offer, so he's built that beautiful brand. So now, having laid this out and understanding that perception is so subjective and that the halo effect is everything, the next thing that we've got to do is we've got to even drill down a little bit deeper on specifically what it is that you can do from a practical standpoint to get that halo effect. And I know you're feeling this. And here's how I know you're feeling it, because I feel this myself. I have this horrible, horrible habit where whenever I meet someone that I really like, say somebody who I'm interested in romantically, I have this horrible habit where I start slacking on creating that halo effect because I think they should just get me. I think, wow, me and this person, we'd be such an incredible couple. I don't want to have to create some crazy halo effect. I just want them to get me right now, and I drop all that. And I just start putting it out there. We'd be a great couple. Look how awesome we'd be. And to tell you the truth, here's why I have this horrible habit. And I bet you have it too, that's why I'm mentioning this. The reason why is because I consistently build that halo effect. But with somebody that I really like, I don't do it. And the reason that I don't do it, here's how I justify it to myself, is that most prospective romantic partners that I would meet generally do like me. And so because most of the people that I meet like me, I think, I'm so great. Look at all these other people that like me. Well, if I have this much in common with this person will really like me without me doing any of that. I'll just drop all that for this person. They're gonna get me more than anybody because we have so much in common. Such a connection. That's what I tend to do. But what's happened is I built an ego, this stupid, stupid ego that somehow, because I think I have a lot in common with somebody, that they should just instantly get me. That I should do nothing to get their RAS to really see the real me. And if I think about it, the things that I have to offer, let's be real, look at me. There's nothing so immediately obvious here that somebody who's very attractive should just immediately get. And I would ask you, let's be real. Be honest, okay? Tell the truth. Is there anything so immediately obvious about you? Are you so attractive that it should just be immediately obvious to anybody how utterly, utterly remarkable you are? Should that be immediately obvious? Because on me, it's not. I'm not a male social media model. I don't have abs. See, that's the great thing, right? If you've got a big set of pecs and abs and a big square cut jaw, well, yeah, it's immediately obvious. Perhaps at that point you can just be like, hey, me and you, what do you think? It's more immediately obvious. But see, you probably do have other types of value that just take a minute to get your head around. And if you take the time to build that halo effect, you're really doing the person a service because you're allowing them to come into your world and allowing them to see what it is that you have to offer. But if you think that what you have to offer is just so immediately obvious that you shouldn't have to do that, I got news for you. In most cases, that's not true. And therefore, by being lazy and not crossing your T's and dotting your I's and just putting it out there, that's not you being authentic. That's you being lazy, and that is you depriving the person who you want to connect with the chance to really meet you. So again, rather than judging people and feeling superior to them, let's dig in here. Let's look at where people are at. And rather than feeling like they shouldn't be like that, why don't we recognize that we're all a work in progress, realize that we all need people to meet us where we're at, and then from there, we can actually begin to take action that's effective, but ultimately equally authentic and even more considerate. So human beings were very multifaceted creatures, and one aspect of us is that we can be courageous, brave, ingenious, wonderful, loving. I think that we're a beautiful, beautiful species. You could actually argue that we're the most beautiful because we have consciousness. Then again, you could say that for that same reason, we're the most ridiculous species, or even the most low level, because that consciousness can also be very destructive. So we know that as human beings, we've got good sides, but we also know that we have some very, very, let's just say, quirky sides. And a lot of this are even vestiges of our evolution. See, the way that our evolved mind works is that we had to be in a situation where even without education, we had certain autopilot aspects of our mind, right? We didn't always have education back in the day. For most of human history, there wasn't, say, a classroom. We had other types of education, maybe how to hunt or how to get through in our tribe or in our environment, but we didn't have a clear-cut education on how to think about things in the way that we do now, okay? You could argue that's for better or for worse. But that being the case, what we have to understand is that there's certain autopilot aspects of human nature. What are some of those that can be a little bit weird to think about? Well, right off the bat, people will want validation of their self-image. People want to be part of groups that are of higher value. People want to be around a strong frame of reality that seems more certain of their own. People want a strong range of emotions that they can't access on their own. People want access to new realities that are just out of their reach and different from their current reality. Why is that? Because they're not able to be present to the moment. And so that lack of attainability, it kind of justifies their weird existing state of mind. If that's the case, then what is a connection between people? What does that mean? Well, part of it is, yes, you have a genuine connection, but part of it is that these evolutionary triggers are being hit. And then what happens is that the person rationalizes the connection. I mean, you probably had it where somebody felt a connection with you that you didn't feel with them, right? Why is that? Well, it's because they were getting triggered perhaps by some of those things. So what you have to do in order to be more magnetic or attractive is you want to implement those aspects, but you don't want to do it in a way where you're this kind of creepy, low-value person, and then you're implementing those aspects as some kind of weird method or technique. What you want to do is build yourself up to where you naturally have it. So for example, getting better eye contact, getting better body language, getting better vocal tonality. These are things that are going to help you to come across as high status and create that halo effect. But what are those based in? A lot of those are based in self-love. A lot of those are based in having a lifestyle that is broad and not just dependent on one person. A lifestyle that you love. So see, there's an organic way of building these things to where you're not dependent on any kind of weird method. You could just live a life where you naturally do these things. Ultimately, what you have to be doing is getting people to want to invest, right? You've got to draw them in and make them want to invest. And this has to be understood here. The thing more than anything that I'm aware of that will trigger that halo effect is investment. The reason why is because biologically, as a part of those weird quirks of our evolution, we don't want to lose what we put in as far as time and energy. So if somebody's put in a lot of time and energy kind of pondering on how to get your attention, they've now invested more. And the more that they invest, the more that they're afraid to lose that investment. And then the more they're afraid to lose that investment, the more they'll start thinking about you, and it creates this sort of investment cycle. Now, I want you to think back to the last person who you really, really wanted to connect with. And did they see your true value, or did they not? Well, a big reason why they might not have, and I've had this, we've all had, is it's heartbreaking when you really want to connect with somebody, they're not seeing your value. In many ways, what happened is you probably made it a little bit too easy. They didn't have to invest. You didn't create a situation where they had to sit there pondering and coming up with different game plans on how to get your attention. Conversely, have you ever had it where your attention was a little bit more tentative and that person was thinking over and over in loops of how to get your attention, and then they fell head over heels in love with you? Or maybe if you're networking, they want to work with you really bad, or they get convinced that you are the great opportunity of their entire life as far as somebody to partner up with in a business. You've probably seen that too. So you've probably seen it where people don't appreciate you, and you've probably seen cases where people do appreciate you. And like we said, the way that it tends to work out is that on some level, those evolutionary aspects are getting hit. And then from there, they start investing. Once they start investing, they start backwards rationalizing that investment. As they backwards rationalize that investment, they go further and further down the rabbit hole. So once we understand that this is the case, very simply, like I said, we want to implement this into our personality organically. It shouldn't be this thing where it's like, oh, exclusive button, high status button, investment button. It's not like that. It's more about you going about your life. And really what you want to do is you want to look at those petty aspects of human nature, and you want to ask yourself, well, what are the good things that they could be pointing towards? For example, if we tend to go into a buying frenzy over scarcity, where we'll do whatever it takes, kind of put it all out there to get something that's scarce, if we have that element, well, why is that? Maybe that thing actually does have really good value, and maybe it's been presented in a way that makes sense. So that's our personal mission here. We've got to be backwards engineering what these things are. We've got to be backwards engineering why these things have value. And then we've got to be building out your personality in such a way that what you're doing is feeding these important things so that people want to be a part of your life. So now what we're going to do is get very profound, and this is going to be one of the more profound aspects of this video, because what I'm going to say to you is that you yourself are not even capable of being grateful for what you have in your life due to a deficiency in your state of consciousness. Now, here's what I mean by this. There's a book, maybe my favorite of all time, called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And you might wonder why I hammer on this book all the time. Is it because I'm a hippie? It seems kind of funny that I'd be a hippie because I'm always screaming and kind of intense. So why is it that this intense screaming guy who builds a 8-figure-a-year business would be talking about The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle? Well, what I see is a challenge that we all have in our psyche, which is that we have the riches of the universe presented to us directly, and we're unable to let it land. So even as you're sitting here, right, you could be sitting in a beautiful place like Charleston, South Carolina. I promise you that even though you're watching this in the video and you're thinking, wow, I'd be so happy if I could come and visit Charleston, in fact, what would happen is you'd probably focus on some little obscure thing that bothers you when you're here, and you wouldn't even be able to take it in. I know this. Look, I lived in Hawaii for many years. That's about the closest thing to the real paradise that you could ever imagine. And even when I lived there, I truly did struggle to actually take Hawaii in. Honestly, I did. I've had it to where I'm living in some beautiful mansion, and I'm struggling to take it in. I just can't let it land. Why is that? It's what Eckhart Tolle is explaining in The Power of Now. Even with, look at the riches of the world. The riches of the world. Why do you need some Rolex watch? Look at what you have. Breathe. Listen. You're alive. You have the riches of the universe. But your mind can't let it in because you're not present to the moment. We struggle to get present to the moment. So think about it this way. Once you realize that, imagine that you meet someone who you really connect with, and you put it all out there, and you make it so easy for them. Well, thought about from the angle that I've just explained, that is actually a violation of their state of consciousness. Their state of consciousness is not even evolved to a point that they could handle being given the treasures of the universe that you're giving them. They always have to be aspiring. You yourself, you can't get present unless you're an active meditator and you've actively curated your consciousness. So if that's the case, if you're just completely putting it out there with somebody and you think that's doing them a favor, I'd ask you this. How is that dealing with the fact that human beings are basically built to aspire to something else? So knowing this, instead of complaining that people don't just get you when you put it out there and take the treasure, why don't you realize that it's more up to you to create a beautiful reality for yourself that they can aspire to be a part of? That is what is connecting to their consciousness. And this can bother you, and yet you yourself probably cannot get present for more than 2 or 3 minutes, and that's if you've been meditating for half a decade. So think about it from that angle. And once you do, now what you have is a very powerful level meta understanding that's going to allow you to consider how it is that you're relating to somebody else's state of consciousness. So if you're really astute, what you're actually realizing at this exact moment is that we've just revealed the secret to one of the classic formats in social dynamics and why it works. And most people don't really understand why it works, so I hope you're intrigued here. The classic format is self-amuse, 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 but then put up a little boundary so that as you're self-amusing, the person who you're talking to wants to be part of it and has to jump through some sort of hoop. So let's look at why this works. Like we said, the typical state of consciousness is that we cannot accept the beauty and epicness that we have in front of us. Like, it is almost impossible for a person to just look at this stone right here and say, I can feel this. I can look at this. This is beautiful. That is one of the hardest things for human beings to do. Nearly impossible. As we said, that's why the book, The Power of Now, is such a hit. Because everybody realizes it. They're always chasing this perfect life. And then as soon as they get it, they realize they're unhappy. It takes a real skill to actually appreciate what it is that you have. So if that's the case, and then you walk up and you're just having fun and self-amusing and being this really cool person, having a great conversation, well, on one level, yeah, the person is going to want to be part of that, but their psyche can't accept it. Their psyche can't say, oh, look, I'm having so much fun with this person. This is so awesome. My life is great right now. They can't accept it. But if there's a little hoop or some little quest to go through, then what it does is it resonates with their state of consciousness. It resonates and it works. Now, what happens whenever you have one element of, say, self-amusing, good energy, but not the other element of some kind of boundary? Well, let's say, for example, that you have a boundary and you walk up to someone, but you're not really that fun, you're not really that cool, and you just say, you can't talk to me. They're like, okay. Or you say, you and I wouldn't get along well. Okay. Hey, I'm going with my friends to some cool place, and you're not allowed to come. Okay. It doesn't work, right? It's just a boundary. There's not that fun aspect. Conversely, what if you have the fun aspect but no boundary? Well, now what's happened is you're just the dancing clown. They say, oh, that was good. You gave me some good energy. But their mind can't accept that you're this cool, fun person to hang out with. It doesn't resonate with their state of consciousness. You haven't taken the time to empathize with where they're at. And then even if you do try to empathize, in most cases, you're going to judge them. You're saying, oh, they don't have a great state of consciousness like me. Again, unless you can look at the reality, the epicness right in front of you right now and truly appreciate it. And by the way, without consciously trying, that's just your default. Unless you can say that, who are you to judge somebody else? Why are you looking down on them? That's where they're at. Meet them where they're at. Be considerate. Be empathetic. Don't expect to just fart in somebody's face and like it just because it comes from deep within, as we said. So understand that that's where we are, and frankly, take it as a lesson to try to be more, boat going by right there, ocean, light, air, trees. Try to learn to take that in. Do better. Do better for yourself. But in the meantime, understand why that classic format of self-amuse, have fun, entertain yourself, good vibes, but a little bit of little bit of that is what makes it work. Going without it being fun, that doesn't do anything either. It's that powerful combination of both. Again, recognizing where somebody's coming from and having value, but then putting a little bit of a price tag on that value. If I tell you right now that there's this incredible new product that you could buy, and it has a price that makes sense, you're probably gonna think about buying it. But if I tell you there's this incredible product that you could get for free if you drive across town, you're not gonna drive across town. Think about that. Let that sink in. The value in this free product is there, but there's no price. You're not gonna drive to go get it. But if there's a price that makes sense, that shows that it does have value, now you're gonna consider buying it. Human beings, we need this as a part of our sense of reality. So again, like what we said at the beginning of this video, it's time that we're spending together. Have the value, but have a price. Value and price. The price, in many ways, is part of how you're presenting that value. It's a way that connects to people's state of consciousness, and it's a way that makes it make sense. Ask yourself, very simply, do you have the value, and do you have a price? in my mind, ultimately what it comes down to is this. We want to understand these weird aspects of our evolutionary wiring in the mind so that we can understand what a halo effect is, how it gets triggered, and why it's really, really important that we have a halo effect that's working in our favor. Like I mentioned many times in this video, how many times have you had it where somebody who you should have connected with just never really wanted to invest in you because ultimately you weren't creating that halo effect? So we've got to understand that kind of buying frenzy element. A buying frenzy could be people running to the back of a room to buy a product. It could be people trying to buy scalp tickets. Whatever it is, they're plotting in their mind about how to get what it is that you have to offer. Now, how do you build your life like this? Like I mentioned earlier, you want to cultivate self-love. Why? Because when you love yourself, you're not chasing anybody else's validation. Likewise, you want to have a great group of friends. Why is that? Well, when you've got a great group of friends that love you and you love yourself, then you're not going to chase other people's validation. Now, likewise, you also want to have a passion that you really care about. Why is that? Well, let's look at this amazing combination. You love yourself because you've worked on what's called your inner confidence, your inner self-esteem. You've done maybe trauma release, or you've really studied what great self-esteem looks like, and you've done work on yourself. You've just done that inner work. So you're combining that self-love. You've built up a great social group of people who you're not dependent on any one person because you've got great friends. You put it out there to make great friends. In addition, you've got a great passion that you love so much and it feeds you. It's feeding your soul. Maybe you're doing presence work. That great presence work also feeds your soul. Well, now all of a sudden you're not chasing validation from anybody. And when you're not chasing validation from anybody, what does that communicate to them? It is what's called an implied social proof. It's basically saying, gee, I must have a lot of great things going for me if I'm not chasing validation. That is what people feel. And oftentimes it makes them want to chase you. But then likewise, what you also want to do is build your life in such a way that you have actual visual social proof. Now, you're not going to have that everywhere, and you don't want to rely on that. I know some club promoters that are, say, live in Hollywood or LA. They're afraid to go to New York or to Miami because they don't have the social proof right there. They don't love themselves. They don't really have a lot of passions. They don't really have a lot of purpose. All they have is that external social proof because all they do is promoting nightclubs. So even though they're very popular in their environment with the actual tangible social proof, they don't have a true core confidence that they can carry anywhere. So you don't want to just rely on that. I think that can get into a kind of a weird zone. So like I mentioned, you want to have places where you can meet somebody out and just invite them into an environment where you're well respected, where other people like you, where they can see clearly that you have social proof. Likewise, you want to have a great social media profile where if somebody's following you, they can see you engaging in your passions. They can see that great eye contact, great voice, great body language. So now what you're doing is by creating social media, you are communicating with them. Now, here's what's so funny. Every time I mention social media, every time, I get these strange comments saying, I think that social media is not good for extended focus. Cal Newport has a book called Deep Work. There's another book called The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brain. Wait a minute. Oh, and I think you're the one that recommended to me to read those books, and I did read them, and why are you now telling me to use social media? The key with social media is this. Be the creator of social media, to have outreach so that you're presenting yourself to people in a way that makes sense to them. It's low key. They can just click a button to look at you. Be the creator, not the consumer. If I tell you to create social media content, I didn't tell you to become a zombie and stare at other people's social media content. If anything, now you're falling into their frame. Now, in doing so, what is another thing that you could do for yourself? You've got to build a reality that you're certain of. That's called swagger. You have little jokes and perspectives on life that you like. You've cultivated your energy in such a way that it feels good to be around you because energy is contagious. And when you're completely sure of your reality and that what you're doing is cool, other people want to be a part of it. Look, let's say that I met you and I really, really am passionate about shooting videos. And I invite you to come into my world where my camera team is here. And I'm having fun doing this. And now all of a sudden you start thinking, why are you not shooting videos? Maybe I want to shoot videos the way Owen does. Now you start to doubt yourself a little bit. You start to want what I have. Because in this world, I have friends around me. I'm doing something I'm passionate about, something I think that you would value. And I'm so sure of it, my conviction for it, that becomes contagious in you. Now all of a sudden, all those things that you have going for you that you might offer to me, that suddenly goes out the window and you just want a little bit of what I have. How might that come into play in networking, making friends, say your dating life? Maybe you have a certain way that you like to have fun, a certain bar or club that you like to go to, a certain after party that you like to go to, a swagger, a way that you like to act. And you're on your path doing it. You're not trying to get in their party. You're not trying to watch them and adapt to them all the time. You have social awareness of them. You're not going to bother them. You're aware of how you're making them feel. Because if you're not, that's just creepy. But you're also staying in your own lane. See, this is my problem. I meet somebody that I really like. I think I could have a very deep romantic connection with them. And then rather than staying on my lane and being me and drawing them into my world, I start trying to jump in their world because I like them so much. I want to do them a favor. I don't want to do those things I do to all the other people that I don't care about as much and draw them in my world. I want to show this person that I want to go in their world because I'm so considerate. But that's not considerate. They don't like that. That is messing up the halo effect. If I'm trying to serve you a beautiful meal, I don't just start shoving the food down your throat till you're oversatiated and want to throw up. When you're over-validating with somebody, that's just like, it's inside me. Feel my authentic self from deep within. People want to have the opportunity to go on an adventure and figure out how to get validation as part of a fun adventure. They don't want it shoved down their throat. Maybe you want to be teased a little bit with the food that I would bring, with a little appetizer, warming up your palate, warming up those juices in your stomach, rather than just jamming it down your throat. Well, no, but I want you to have the food. The most authentic thing if I want you to eat the food is to jam it down your throat. No, I'm considerate of you. So I bring it out. I bring out that meal with a beautiful presentation. We get everybody together and we honor this beautiful meal by oohing and awing over it a little bit. We present it at first with a little bit of an appetizer, a little bit of a warm-up, until we eventually bring the main course, and later the dessert. In the same way, are you presenting yourself like that? Because I want you to think about this for a minute. Think about food in that same way. If you go to a beautiful restaurant where everybody is there to order that food, I mean, it sounds crazy. Order the food, okay, but you know my point. And everybody's invested in it, and everybody's focused on the food, and everybody's oohing and awing over the food. Well, when they bring out the meal, notice how, let's say you get a tasting menu at a 5-star dinner. Go get a tasting menu. Every dish they bring out, they say, the corn is an organic corn from Napa Valley, grown in the Napa Valley sun. You're like, oh, wow, the corn. This corn's amazing. Why? It's the presentation that they put on it. Go to an art gallery and notice how somebody comes in. There's a spotlight on that piece of art. They ask you, do you know about the art? Do you have a curated taste in art? Is this kind of art something that feeds your self-image as a powerful person who has his own art collection or her own art collection or their own art collection? You see? That's why art sells at such a high premium. Art, the best example of anything. Art could just be viewed as some little stupid painting sitting on the ground on the floor. Or it could be put in a beautiful gallery and presented in such a way that only someone with a certain ego or self-image would like that piece of art. If you'd like to date a certain type of person, do you present yourself and niche yourself as that type of person that would date somebody like that? Let's say that you wanted to date a singer. Do you present yourself as somebody who is the perfect match for somebody like that? Let's say that you want to have an exclusive clientele in your business. Is the way that you're presenting your business as someone who's there for exclusive clientele? Or is your clothing just a joke? What I'd encourage you to do, look back to that Miami Vice example. Go to a beautiful clothing store. Go to Rodeo Drive in LA. Go to a beautiful clothing area like Soho in New York City. Go out to incredible clothing stores in Vegas or South Beach and look at the layout of the store. Look at the way the clothes are presented. You know what's funny? Let me tell you something funny. Sometimes I negotiate for clothes that I'm buying. You know how I do it? I kind of just look at it like this, and I kind of just, not in a way that would ever hurt the clothing, ever. That's too disrespectful, but I might just take it and kind of just throw it on the ground. And it kind of reminds the salesperson who wants to sell it, wait a minute, it's just a piece of clothing. We're not going to buy into that frame. Do you see that? Do you see that? Rewind it if you need me to hammer this further. Actually, I'll just hammer it further. If you're feeding into the frame, oh, the art, oh, the clothes, you're in that frame, they set the price. The buyer-seller dynamic is set by them. But if you don't buy into that frame and you're in your frame and suddenly they want you to wear it, you're that cool person who they want wearing their clothes. Maybe you're a customer that they want to deal with. Suddenly they start to lower their price. They'll do whatever it takes. They're the one with something to sell, but they go into a buying frenzy to do business with you. Conversely, you might see an article of clothing that's scarce, for example, high-end streetwear, very rare streetwear, like the old Kanye West shoes, Yeezys. And there was a point where people would line up around the block for those Yeezys. There was a buying frenzy. Now that Yeezys are more common, it doesn't have that same buying frenzy. You don't want them as bad. Yeah, you'd maybe wear them if it's convenient, but you certainly wouldn't pay for them. You're not willing to invest. But let me ask you a question. What if you did invest in those silly Yeezy shoes? How much would you take care of them? How much would you value them? How much would you want to show them off? And that's the key here. By Yeezy presenting those shoes in a way that connects to you, you will enjoy them more. That isn't messing with your head. That isn't any kind of manipulation or a bad thing. That is simply creating a cool product and presenting it in a way that connects to you. So build your life in such a way. Think about this, the way you're presenting yourself. When you go out, are you this lost Pinocchio begging to get in someone else's party? Or do you love yourself? Have great eye contact, body language, tonality, jokes, swagger, a direction, a game plan for your night, a cool place to go, places to bring the person to, a world to invite them into, a social media profile for them to check out, an attitude that shows that you believe and love yourself. How are you presenting this? And if you present this properly, what will happen is you do trigger that buying frenzy, that desire to invest. And as that person invests in you, now with every minute that they're thinking about how to invest in you further, how to buy into you, the more they invest, the more they rationalize the investment, and that halo effect is going up and up and up. I can tell you this from teaching program. I could barely get somebody to pay attention to a video like this. Most people that watch it, if we were to look at the metrics, didn't even watch it all the way through, despite the fact that I'm putting in my best effort in this video. I'm trying so hard. I'm flown down to the city and giving everything I have to this video. Doesn't matter. Great video, but it's presented for free on a social media platform. What if the same content was taught live, where someone at least, even if they came for free to a free tour event, had to at least take the time to sit down and listen? They didn't spend any money at a free event, but at least they spent the time. And there's other people there cheering for me. Now they're in my world. What if I were to charge them $300 to listen to the same content, maybe do some exercise about it? What if I were to charge $3,000? I can tell you at programs of mine that are thousands of dollars, people are writing down every word. They come up to me years later in tears saying, I implemented everything I did because I was invested. Well, that last part I added in. They said I implemented everything that we worked on together that weekend, but I know in my mind it's because they're invested. So when you really like someone, in the same way, if I see someone here on the street, I say, let's just go learn how to socialize, like what I teach in my programs for thousands of dollars, they're not gonna listen. But if I could present it in a way where maybe I can get them to look a little bit at a video, maybe come to a free event, listen a little bit more, get into it, start to buy in, present it in the right way. Perhaps then I can get them to spend a little bit of money and more. Next thing you know, that person could have an incredible transformation. When I meet someone who's a great romantic prospect, if instead of putting it all out there, expecting them just to get me, I just have built a life that incorporates these weird, bizarre, evolutionary aspects of our mind, I've kind of followed the the trail back to the gold and said, well, why are these things valuable? Maybe this isn't some weird thing I'm trying to trigger like some weird robot. Maybe I should love myself. Maybe I should look at my body language, my communication. Maybe I should build great friends. Maybe I should have a purpose. Maybe the things they respond to are actually really positive and healthy, and I should just take the time to think about incorporating those things into who I am. Maybe being my authentic self isn't me being lazy and making no effort. Maybe me being my authentic self is actually looking at myself and taking the time to be considerate of others, not fart in their face and expect them to like it because it's authentic, but showing an authentic expression of what I think would be a great way to communicate with you. So that's what I'm doing here. And that's what I would encourage you to do, to realize that you can offer more value to the world by getting over this weird aspect that the lowest version of you is the most authentic version of you. And in fact, realizing that there could be a better version of you, that you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be a doctor or lawyer, but you can love yourself, accept yourself, have friends that like you for who you are, build a world to invite people into. Rather than being a sailor trying to jump on somebody else's island and say, I'm here, you could say, I built a beautiful island for you to come and enjoy. That is my message for you. Build the island. Be your best self, but also accept yourself rather than making that as some way to browbeat yourself. Simply present it in a way that connects. Understand the truth of who we are as human beings. Stop judging it. Stop looking down on it. Stop saying, why do I have to change who I am, aka rationalizations for being lazy. Have empathy for the fact that you feel these same aspects of your evolutionary psychology and be empathetic for other people. Work with them and meet them where they're at. My belief is that if all human beings could have this mindset that we want to connect with others and to take the time to kind of sweep our own porch, the world would be a much better place. So that's why I want to share with you this message that I believe in so much, and I've committed so much of my adult life to getting out there. Even though I offer you this video for free, I do hope that you'll take it into consideration. Imagine right now, if you paid tens of thousands of dollars for what you just saw in this one message, how you'd perceive it and the way in which you change your life. We're a team. We're here together to support each other. We're on this journey together, a part of this movement. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of it. And I'll be back with a lot more soon. Peace.